country, asking for a plate of food and a place to rest. I started hearing back and mapped out a month-long tour of the East Coast in the spring of 1999 for the two of us. Fortunately, my girlfriend at the time, Alana, a punk rock girl with shit tattooed across her wrist, had two things any broke, aspiring band needs: a van and a debit card. We were golden. The first place we ended up playing on tour was an open mic night in Decatur, Georgia. The other performers were your average singer-songwriter types. Think Jewel but less Alaskan, Jack Johnson but less surf. And then there was me and Kevin, screaming about anarchist politics in people's faces. There was a bewildered silence after we finished, and we most definitely did not win that night's prize money. We showed up hours late to our second show, a punk house in Asheville, North Carolina called the Pink House. The organizer, Aaron Comet Bus, scolded us and said we could only play 6 songs to make room for the many other bands on the bill, which was fine with us because it didn't even cut our set list in half. We played through a busted PA and a crappy amp, but we rocked the shit out of those 6 songs. The people watching us went off, dancing and clapping along. This was the first time that people had ever danced or sung along to us while we played. What a high, what a rush. It felt like our music was actually connecting with people. We hung out with everyone afterward, drinking 40-ounce malt liquor, the preferred drink of choice in punk culture after Rancid popularized it in their Salvation video, and also because it was incredibly cheap. We felt like we'd truly arrived. Most of the other shows on the tour fell through. The places we did end up playing were squats, houses, and garages. We brought a boombox with us, and after every show we dubbed more copies of the demo tape for anyone who wanted one. We started to catch on, especially in Florida's political punk scene. We ended up making 1,000 copies. We also killed Alana's van and drained her bank account in the process. She dumped me shortly after the tour ended. I loved being on the road because it kept my mind away from feelings of dysphoria. This would become a constant theme throughout my life, binging and purging. At home, boredom and curiosity led me to sit around in dresses, but on tour, I could forget about it and avoid temptation for weeks at a time. Then I would return home, and the urge would hit me all over again. The touring experience galvanized us, and when we got back, Kevin and I immediately started work on another EP. One of the pen pals I'd made was this crusty punk rock Jewish kid named Jordan Kleeman from Pikesville, Maryland. Jordan was part of a collective of fellow anarchists that ran a small DIY punk label called Crasshole Records. Before actually meeting them, I imagined them as hardened class warriors, living on the fringes and smashing the state. In reality, they were smashing the state from Jordan's mother's living room couch while drinking sodas and eating Utz potato chips from her pantry. Like us, they loved the band Crass, and also like us, they were assholes, thus the label's name. Eventually, he changed the name to Sabbat, in reference to the wooden shoes that French factory workers threw into gears to sabotage production during the Industrial Revolution. The label put out our first vinyl release, a 12-inch EP. They printed 500 copies, and due to a recording error that went unnoticed before going to press, it ended up sounding like complete shit. Bands in the scene were known for having a lo-fi feel, but this sounded like it was coming out of a speaker that had been taken out back and beaten with a sledgehammer. We had no choice but to sell them, though, since we had to recoup the money for the pressing. I absolutely hated it. Still, some people out there will tell you it's the best thing we've ever done. One of the copies landed in the hands of James Bowman. I had met James on the first day of freshman year at Naples High School. Sporting a Guar t-shirt and a green mohawk, he went running past me down the hallway being chased by 2 rednecks. Who the fuck was that punk? I thought. By lunch, we were good friends. We had lined up a second tour, and James offered to buy all the guitar strings for us, so he was in. Always ahead of the curve when it came to gear, James owned a Gibson Les Paul and a Marshall amp, literally amplifying our sound. He also had a girlfriend, Jenny, who he surprised us with and brought along for the ride. For the next month and a half, my Buick was a cramped traveling home for the 4 of us, Kevin, James, Jenny, and me. That car rolled down the road on a cloud. It was a boat. Tons of trunk space, but not great on gas. It did, however, have a working cassette tape deck and a CB radio. The tour varied from city to city. In Chicago, we were humbled to play the legendary venue Fireside Bowl, where we felt like a legitimate band. Then the next night, we'd end up playing in Des Moines in some kid's parents' guest house where the audience ran at full force and launched themselves into the walls while we played. It was the tail end of the 90s punk scene.